Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope all of you are doing well. Welcome to this session on project management. I'm Lakshmi here. When we talk about project management, the first important thing is one of the most widely accomplished certification from Project Management Institute is project management professionals. We are pioneers. We provide training services in project management, program management. Okay, with a whole list of content that we have on the various aspects related to technology, related to business, related to leadership, related to management. Now, coming back to the discipline of project management, right? Before we head to the presentation, we'll fairly spend some time looking at what exactly is the philosophy of project management all about, right? So when we talk about project management, essentially we are managing projects. Okay, we are managing projects, and as Manoj rightly pointed out, there are a whole set of activities that we will have to perform in order to ensure that we are able to manage the projects appropriately. Let us try to complement our learning with an example that becomes relatively simple, right? When we talk about examples in conjunction with the topic that is being discussed, it relatively becomes very simple for us to understand and appreciate the concepts in a better way. So let us take an example where we are saying that each of us would like to pass PMP, project management professional, in the first attempt. Okay, so in the very first attempt, you would like to pass your project management professional examination and you would like to come out with flying colors, right? So how do we do it? So what are the various attributes in this regard? So project management professional is a certification offering from Project Management Institute, and one of the certification offering is PMP. So who are they? They are your primary, stakeholders, right? So end of the day, how do things relatively start? The first important thing that comes into picture is the philosophy of stakeholders. So Project Management Institute is your key stakeholder. In case if you consider to partner with us, right? If you, in case you have decided to partner with us and obtain the credential, then we are your stakeholders, and you have reached out to us to provide certain services with regard to project management, right? So there is what essentially will happen. There is lot of communication which will happen between all of us, it between PMI, between we as a training partner, and between the list of participants who want to get certified, right? So two key elements that come into the picture is one, primarily we are talking about stakeholders, and the second thing is we are talking about communication, right? So then what is it that you do in a project? The first important thing that we do in a project is we determine what is the scope of work, right? So in this case, the scope of work is to obtain the credential, which is called project management professional. Do you intend to continue and do this for the rest of your life? Definitely no. You prefer to time box this, and you prefer to accomplish this credential in the next for all practical purposes. Let us say you would like to accomplish this credential in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So here we are talking about schedule, right? And then when you have to appear for the examination, there is a certain amount of fees that you will have to pay to PMI, Project Management Institute, as an exam fees. In order to complete the onboarding process and ensure that we give you the required training, you will have to also pay a certain amount of money to the training partner, right? So that's a very cursory common thing that happens when you enroll with a specific training organization. So here we are talking about the third important element, which is called cost. Okay, then what else are we talking about? In order to pass the examination, you will need study resources. You need good education. You need learning content. You need to access a learning management system. You will need access to what do we call it? We call it as resources. Okay, you need access to resources. So primarily, what are the various aspects that we have discussed till now? When we talk about project management, we speak about stakeholders, we speak about communication, we speak about scope, right? We speak about schedule. Okay, the various components that primarily come into picture. So we speak about schedule, we speak about cost, we speak about resources, right? And what else? What will happen primarily, right? In the world of project management, one of the most important attributes that we should be considering is what essentially can go wrong, right? So primarily we are talking about something called the philosophy of risk management. You prepare so well, you attend a webinar, you are 100% confident, your application is approved, right? And primarily you spend close to, let us say, 6 to 8 weeks to prepare well for the examination. But unfortunately, touch wood, nothing should go wrong. But what if somebody were to fall sick just prior to the examination, right? So then you will not be able to appear for the examination, right? So how are we going to deal with, what do we call it, team, in the world of project management? What do we call it? We call it as risk management. How are you going to deal with uncertainties, right? So how are you going to deal with uncertainties? If you are going to take your examination from home, how are you going to deal with uncertainties related to infrastructure? Okay, because if there is an internet failure, PMI is going to give you a maximum of 2 attempts, after which your examination will be revoked. So the infrastructure related risk has to be taken care by you as the participant who is appearing for the examination, or you as the delegate who is appearing for the examination. So what are those uncertainties? What if there is a new variant that comes into picture? What if we go for another lockdown? Right? So how are you going to deal with all these uncertainties? What if you don't meet the eligibility criteria of project management? What if your application does not qualify for the PMP examination? These are all uncertainties. So how are you going to deal with uncertainties is what we are going to look at. So you need to keep your eyes and ears wide open as a project manager and primarily look at the philosophy of risk management. Okay, then we all would like to be successful in our life. We would like to pass the examination in the very first attempt. We talk about quality. Okay, so quality is doing it right the first time. Okay, quality is meeting the requirements of PMI. Quality is passing PMP in the first attempt, right? Quality is meeting the requirements from Project Management Institute with regard to passing the PMP examination. So quality plays a very important role, right? So how many elements have we discussed? We have discussed about one, stakeholders, communication, scope, schedule, cost, resources, risk management, quality, and then what else are we going to talk about? Sometimes you will have to work with an external agency to get some of the work done, and that becomes the operational definition of procurement, right? So you are procuring services. Okay, so you are procuring services from an external agency, and that becomes the definition of procurement. You have partnered with Edureka, and Edureka is going to provide you services in project management. So that is called procuring services. Okay, we all know English, we all have access to internet, but still you have decided that let us work with some industry standard service provider who has a good reputation in the market, and we are in trusted hands, and they are going to give us the required direction to pass PMP in the very first attempt. So you're going to procure service. All right, so now let's go back to the presentation team. So welcome to the world of project management, fundamentals of project management. We look at what is a project. We took a live example. Passing PMP in the first attempt can be a classic example of a project, because a project has a certain scope of work. It has a definitive start and completion date. It is progressively elaborated, and we looked at what are the various attributes related to project management. What is project management professional? As a practicing project manager, you are expected to manage constraints. You are expected to juggle between all these elements, starting from scope, schedule, cost, quality, communication, resources, risk, and procurement. And as a project manager, you are expected to deliver value to the customer. Okay, so the next important thing we'll start looking at is what is the subtle difference between a project, a program, and a portfolio. This is very famously called the 3 Ps, the 3 Ps of an organization: a project, a program, and a portfolio. What is the hierarchy? Usually the highest level is the portfolio, where financial planning is done, where we understand what is the growth line for the business, where is the money going to be invested, how much money has to be invested, why is this investment important, how is this significantly going to impact the organization, what will be the growth, in which specific line of business do we intend to grow, so on and so forth, right? So that becomes the first and foremost important aspect of a portfolio. A portfolio is where the truest intent of an organization lies. That's where all big decisions are taken, and from there on we talk about programs and projects. We'll start looking at all these important aspects. PM terminology, we spoke about the PM terminology in length and breadth. We'll also look at what are the various phases, right? Gracefully, how do you initiate a project? Okay, so initiation, what is initiation? What goes into initiation? Why do we have to initiate a project? Who are the various stakeholders who come into picture? what are the various processes that we follow. All of this is primarily part of your project management. Initiation, we'll start looking at what are the various phases and what are the various knowledge areas that we have. Okay, so that's the agenda as we move forward. All right, so how do things unfold from here? Just to give you a timeline view, primarily, right? So introduction to PMP certification, that's the first big step in the right direction. As I told you, we don't show you presentations. We take you to the live website. We tell you what are the various certification offerings. You can click on PMP, and it tells you what is it required for you to earn the PMP, what is PMP all about. Okay, any latest updates related to coronavirus disease. Okay, why do you have to go ahead for this credential? What are the key study resources that are required, or what are the important resources that are required from an PMP standpoint. We do a deep dive into all of this. Okay, so introduction to PMP. All of the sessions are hands-on. We don't simply go through presentations and say we are done. We are very unique in the market because for all the topics that we are going to discuss, we do case studies, which is very important. We create a high performing team. Okay, what are the various span of activities that we have? All of this course is divided into 5 modules. If you look at the first one, we'll talk about the introductory aspect to PMP. The second topic is as you start becoming a project manager, you're going to deal with people. So how do you create a high performance team, right? How do you create a high performance team? How do you bring everybody to one common platform? How do you establish ground rules? Okay, what is your team charter? What is your value proposition? All of this is going to happen in the second topic, which is creating a high performance team. Because end of the day, what matters most to the organization is people, right? So without the right set of people, without the right talent, it becomes very difficult for us to go back and demonstrate value proposition to our customer, right? So all these exercises, as I tell you, they are all hands on. Then how do you gracefully start a project? Okay, we need to ensure that you have a business case in place, you have a project charter, right? So you need to identify who your list of stakeholders are. So all of this plays a very important role. So starting the project is relatively very important. You need to ensure that you are able to handpick the right set of processes which will give the customer the required confidence that the performing organization will be able to deliver value proposition to us. Okay, gracefully starting those projects, putting together the right set of processes, right teams in place, which is of paramount importance. Then we move into the execution phase of the project where we talk about getting the work done, right? So execution is where we flip the plan into action. You start working with teams, you start producing deliverables where a lot of communication happens. There is a lot of risk management which needs to done. There could be firefighting. So all of this will happen in step number 4, which is primarily doing the work. And then we talk about keeping the team on track. At the end of the day, we are dealing with people. Okay, conflicts are very likely to happen. So how are you going to deal with conflicts? How do you keep the flock together? Okay, and how are you going to ensure that we constantly are able to broadcast the value proposition that we are able to create to stakeholders? So keeping the team on track and the keeping the rapidly changing environment in mind. So things are very likely to change, right? Nothing is written on stone, right? So you need to keep your eyes and ears wide open and start looking at what is the environment in which the project is operating, and how do you keep a tab on it, and how do you ensure that anything and everything that we do is going to be aligned to the organization's goals and objectives. Okay, so across these 6 key milestones starting from 1 through 6, we'll spend a lot of time discussing about scope management, schedule management, cost management, quality management, communication management, risk management, procurement management, the what are the various tenets of project knowledge management, right? How do we gracefully start a project? What is project initiation? What is planning? Failing to plan is planning to fail. So what are those key considerations? What happens in the execution phase of the project? What are you going to do in monitor and control, right? And how do you gracefully close a project? All of this will be aligned to the respective milestones, right? So we understand what is a project team. So if you look at a project in a very simple way, as I told you, it is a sequence of tasks having a definitive beginning and end. So passing PMP in the first attempt, the example that we took, right? We are all practicing project managers, right? And when we start working on projects, we need to ensure that we have that one common understanding of project of paramount importance. So a project can be defined as a sequence of tasks having a definitive beginning and end. Okay, it has a definitive start and definitive completion date. So passing PMP, you start today, probably 6 or 8 weeks from now. Once you enroll with us, you have passed your PMP. So you can take on to social media, you can celebrate your success, you can go back and give something back to the community, you can go back and tell your friends that we partnered with Edureka and they have been providing excellent services on project management, right? So you can definitely call it a project. What are the defined outcomes and deliverables? Okay, what are the various outcomes and deliverables of your project? Okay, we talk about deadlines. How do we gracefully align to the deadlines committed by the customer? In this case, let us say uh, you are being assigned to a very important project in 3 weeks from now, and the customer says we need project managers who are at least trained on PMP. Okay, formally they should have completed the 35 formal contact hours of project management. So that becomes a fixed deadline, right? So that can be a good example for a fixed deadline. Then budget is predefined, right? So end of the day, these are all important constraints that you are expected to manage as a project manager. Okay, so a very important consideration. Then what are the various attributes? So attributes of a successful project: a planned and organized approach. Failing to plan is planning to fail. That's very important. We keep saying this all over again. Schedule management, results, monitoring of results, maximizing customer satisfaction, bang for the buck. Why would customer come back and give you the business next time? If you are not going to be convinced that Edureka is going to do a fantastic job on project management, helping you accomplish your goals and objectives, okay, you will not definitely recommend us to your friends or colleagues, right? So it is our primary responsibility to ensure that we are able to maximize the customer satisfaction, understand what is the pulse of the customer, and give you the bang for the buck. Optimization of resources. End of the day, there is always a dearth of resources, so you need to ensure that you are able to address the resource scarcity, and ensure that the team has one common understanding about the project, and appropriately you are able to bring in the best in class resources to work on the project. Okay, commitment is a very important aspect. We are dealing with people, so how do you ensure that the team is committed to what needs to be delivered? Okay, more of a strategy. So project life cycle, right? So the next important thing is we are going to talk about the life cycle of a project. So we all know, right, that when we talk about project management, there are certain steps that you need to follow. Okay, so are we going to look at what kind of life cycle model are we going to adapt? Project life cycle is not a cyclic process, but it is more a sequential process comprised of various phases, which is unique to a project. So we talk about these phases, right? We start with initiation, then we move on to requirements, we talk about high level design, we talk about detailed design. This looks typically like an software development project, right, wherein these are the typical phases of the software development life cycle, starting from high level design, detailed design, coding, testing, installation, deployment, training, warranty support, and eventually heading to operations, right? So as a project manager, you will have your skin in the game in all the life cycle phases, and it is of paramount importance that we understand what can be a good entry criteria for you to start a project. What are the span of activities that we intend to perform, right? What is it that you intend to measure? Primarily, we all know, right, that what cannot be measured cannot be controlled. So you need to know what is your measurement system, who is going to measure, what are we going to measure, how is it important to the organization, how is it important to business, right? So there are all many important considerations that have to be taken into account as you start getting into the life cycle phases of the project. Okay, so starting with requirements, moving to high level design, detailed design, coding, testing, installation, turnover, so on and so forth. Okay, right. The next important thing is, okay, so what exactly is the PMP certification? So hearing from the horse's mouth, PMP stands for Project Management Professional. I showed you the live PMI site. It is a globally acknowledged profession certification program in project management that legalizes a professional's education, experience, skill, and competence. Today, if you look at a lot of clients, they uh, come asking for certified project managers. Okay, that's become more and very important key requirement on the profile. Okay, So how are we going to bring in value proposition here? It is not that we only help you to understand the philosophy in a better way, but we using our rigorous delivery model, we prepare you very well for the exam. Okay, we put you through a live instructor led online class. We ensure that we give you all the required knowledge that is required for you to pass the examination. We make you role ready. We provide 100% support on applications, and even post training support is completely free of cost with us, right? So we give you the bang for the buck, and you are going to work with an certified professional who is already a PMP certified, and he understands the tricks of the trade, and he's going to mentor you through this 4 week process, or it is between Monday to Friday, or we also do weekday sessions, weekend sessions, and we ensure that we are able to give you the bang for the buck. Okay, so that's our value proposition that we bring to the table. The next important thing is the project versus the program versus the portfolio, right? So as I told you, right, this is very famously called the 3 P's of project management, right? So 3 P's of project management. If you look into any organization, this is very famously called the 3 P's. Okay, the 3 P's are the project, the program, and the portfolio. So for all practical purposes, if you look at the portfolio, is where the truest intent of an organization lies. Okay, if you want me to give an example, when we work in an organization, we talk about the various portfolios. We could talk about banking, retail, okay, life sciences, healthcare, media and entertainment. So we usually call them as the verticals. So primarily what happens is we talk about portfolios, that's the highest level. And even if you're looking for some kind of certification in portfolio management, PFMP is the latest and greatest certification from PMI, and that is going to equip you with the required knowledge on how do you manage portfolios and what is expected of a portfolio manager, right? So then we talk about program management, managing programs which are by definition inherently complex. So how do we differentiate between a portfolio and a program? A program is a group of projects. Okay, a program essentially is a group of projects, okay, and managed together. Okay, and primarily why do we manage them together? Because it is going to give you some benefits which we don't get by managing them individually. Okay, so program management, managing a group of projects which give you some desired benefits, and these benefits do not come in by if you do not manage these projects together, right? So that's the most important definition of a program. So we talk about programs. Program will comprise of multiple projects. Okay, and then we talk about projects. A project is unique, it is progressively elaborated, it has a definitive start and end. So we'll spend a lot of time looking at all these important aspects on the 3 P's of an organization: portfolios, projects, and programs. Okay, so a project is a temporary endeavor. Okay, it is a temporary endeavor. If you look at the choice of words, it is a temporary endeavor undertaken to produce a unique product or solution. Okay, a program is a group of projects managed together which give you some benefits. Okay, if you look at the philosophy of shopping mall is very famous in the cities in which we are living, right? So the philosophy of shopping malls has become very famous in the cities in which we are living. So when we talk about a shopping mall, I can go to a movie, I can go to a restaurant, I can go for gaming, or I can go for shopping. Individually if you look at all of them are projects, but we are going to manage all of them together because it is going to give me some benefit. And what is that benefit? The benefit is the one-stop point which is going to cater to all my needs. Okay, so that can be an operational definition of a program. So the three important aspects: portfolios, that's where the truest intent of an organization lies, that's where all the big decisions are taken. And as a portfolio manager, we talk about managing programs, inherently complex programs. These programs, they can be dependent on each other or they can be independent of each other. Okay, and then we talk about programs, a group of projects that are managed together, and primarily the intent is to give us some good benefits. And then we talk about projects. Okay, a temporary endeavor undertaken to produce a unique product or solution. All right. So what is project management? We looked at it, right? So significance of project management, we understand how all of these elements, they you will have to juggle them. Okay, how do you ensure that you are able to work with people? How do you identify stakeholders? How do you communicate with them? How do you plan for the project? Failing to plan is planning to fail. What is risk management? What is a risk life cycle? What are those uncertainties which could impact your project? What are the various mitigation strategies that are there? Effective communication and stakeholder identification. Okay, demarcating roles and responsibilities, defining the scope, timeline, and cost required to carry out the project. Okay, so all these elements start the laundry list of elements that we have been talking about: scope, schedule, cost, quality, communication, risk, procurement. Right. So it is important that you are able to juggle between all of them, and you are able to appropriately deliver value proposition. Next thing is, as you get started off on the philosophy of project management, we will understand what is a methodology, why is it required. Okay, end of the day, there is no one solution that fits all business problems, right? So it is your primary responsibility to ensure that you are able to understand what kind of methodology are we going to talk about. Just to give you a sneak peek into what we are discussing, usually, right, we talk about, just to give you an example, iterative and incremental model, right? So we all know, right? This is very famously called the Mona Lisa image, right? The Mona Lisa image. So there are two ways that we look at. Okay, are we talking about an incremental model, or are we talking about an iterative model, right? So there are a lot of methodologies that are there, right? So is agile an incremental or an iterative model? What is it? Why is it required? How do we differentiate between them? All these good discussions we are going to have, right? So primarily when we talk about methodology, what is the methodology that you intend to adapt? What are the requirements? They come from stakeholders. What is essentially a work breakdown structure, hierarchical decomposition of all the work that needs to be done in a project? If I were to come back and ask you, in how many days are you able to complete your PMP examination, you need to have a work breakdown structure. Then you will tell me that for me to complete stakeholder engagement or stakeholder management, I will need 2 days. In order to complete scope management, I need 2 days. In order to complete schedule management, I need 3 days. In order to complete risk management, I need 4 days. Right? So you will need a work breakdown structure, hierarchical decomposition of all the work that needs to be done. Then we talk about the next important thing, which is called milestones. What is a milestone? A milestone is a significant point of completion. You have enrolled with us, that's the first milestone in the big direction. You have completed your training, your second milestone. You have submitted your application to PMI for review, the third milestone is accomplished. You have prepared for the examination, fourth milestone. The last final milestone is, okay, you have prepared for the exam, you schedule your exam, and you pass the exam, right? So that's the final milestone that you intend to accomplish. So what are those milestones? How are we going to identify them? All this plays a very important role. Then baselining. What is baselining? Baselining is defining the point of reference. Looking at charts, what are the various reporting requirements? How do we develop Gantt charts? What are they? Why do you need them? How are they going to help the project manager understand what is the overall health of the project? Okay, what is a change control board? How are you going to gracefully deal with changes? Who are your stakeholders? Issues? Okay, how do you mitigate risks? What are the triple constraints? And what is the rack state? Red, amber, and green. Okay. Then we are going to talk about the next important aspect, which is the phases, starting from initiation. How do you gracefully initiate a project? In this phase, a decision-making team will identify if the project can be really be completed. So end of the day, you're dealing with organizations' money. You need to go back and call out a business case. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Right? And how is it going to help the organization? What is the business problem that is getting addressed because of this project? All of this will happen in the initiation phase. Planning, failing to plan is planning to fail. So it's important that you have a very good project management plan, and this project management plan will comprise of 9 subsidiary plans. All the elements that we spoke about: scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, risk management plan, stakeholder communication management plan, procurement management plan. How do you do estimations? How do you do contracting? All of this needs to be part of your planning. Execution is where you flip the plan into action and you start working with the resources on the project. Okay, you start producing deliverables. Monitoring and control is an ongoing activity throughout the complete life cycle of a project. You need to monitor and you need to control. Okay, so that's relatively very important. You may consider to monitor schedule, cost, quality, so on and so forth. Closing: in this phase, an evaluation is done to highlight the project success and learn from the project history. So what went well, what did not go well. In an hypothetical case, if we have to go back and do it all over again, how differently are we going to do it? Okay, right. So knowledge areas we discussed, right? Starting from the various topics. This is the project management body of knowledge, the Bible. So we give you very good insights into this discipline on project management. We spoke about all this: risk management, resource management, communication, quality, schedule, scope, integration, cost, stakeholder, and procurement. Integration is integrating all these bubbles, right? So that becomes your integration management, right? So we'll look at what are the various processes that are there. We'll handpick each topic and we'll start looking at what are the various aspects that have to be taken into consideration. Okay, we will give you access to our learning management system, and we will give you the required knowledge. We'll give you the study resources, and we'll ensure that you are role ready and you pass the examination with flying colors. Okay, thank you and good luck. I look forward to working with you.